Alonso has finally made the right career move. This was probably the phrase we all heard most often when talking about F1 in the build-up for the 2023 season. And now, with the silly season already being in full effect, his name's being thrown around in the rumors for him to join Mercedes following Hamilton's move to Ferrari, and even occasionally for the second Red Bull seat. To be fair, there's definitely logic behind the moves Fernando Alonso has made in his career, given the context. For instance, he raced for teams which didn't have a works engine in only 2 years in his 19-year career, until his move to Aston Martin in 2023, so it's clear that he was eyeing opportunities which would allow him to race for works outlets to maximize his chances. But until last year, the Spaniard hadn't been able to get the timing right one way or another with these moves for many years. His achievements in Formula 1 are beyond the imagination of most of the drivers on the grid, yet one can't help but wonder, how much more was possible? So much so that in 2019, even Max Verstappen said that Alonso could be 8 or 9 times world champion in the right team. So let's take a look back and explore how different his career could have been. First, let's briefly recall Alonso's journey. The Spanish driver's Formula 1 career began in 2001 at Minardi, one of the most widely admired teams in the history of the sport. After his brilliant performances in the modest team, he went to Renault, which had just returned to F1 in 2002, to be a test driver, and in 2003 he was promoted to the race seat when Jenson Button left the team. He won the championships in 2005 and 6 with the team on the rise. Alonso then joined McLaren for the 2007 season to race alongside rookie Lewis Hamilton. Following just 1 year at McLaren and a very sour departure, Alonso returned to Renault, now a mid-table team, in 2008. After 2 mostly forgettable seasons here, apart from 1 or 2 incidents, he moved to Ferrari in 2010. Although he came close to the championship twice in this chapter of his career, the Scuderia's disastrous start to the turbo hybrid era was the last straw for him, closing off an overall disappointing 5-year tenure. Not extending his contract, the star driver went back to McLaren in 2015. He retired from F1 at the end of the 2018 season, following the failure that was the greatly anticipated partnership with Honda. He competed in different categories for 2 years and saw success, but it was time to come back home. He returned to F1 with Alpine in 2021. During the 2022 season, the Spaniard could not agree on the terms for renewing his contract with Alpine and left again in a sour way, signing with Aston Martin for 2023 and beyond. Alonso's adventurous journey has seen him only realistically compete for the championship in 5 seasons. 2005 and 6 when he won the title, and 2007, 2010 and 2012 when he came ever so close but lost narrowly each time. In this video, we'll map out alternative routes for the part of his career after he went to McLaren and identify the seasons when he could have been in title contention with the teams he went to. Of course, before unleashing our imagination, I should add that I will try to shape these different scenarios in the light of the transfer rumors and news over the years, and try to draw somewhat realistic career paths. But in the end, we're talking about hypothetical scenarios for fun. There will definitely be parts that are open to interpretation. First of all, in each of these paths we will draw, Alonso does not announce his retirement at the end of 2018. He likely wouldn't have been pursuing new challenges because he hadn't been disconnected from the fight at the front for as many years as he has been in reality. A Fernando Alonso whose career was shaped in such a way, and who didn't waste years in the mid-pack or even at the back of the grid, would probably not have left F1 at the end of the 2018 season. As a matter of fact, he continued to appear in various racing series during his 2 seasons away from F1, so there was still nothing lacking in him in terms of competitive spirit. When Alonso and McLaren mutually terminated their 2-year contract in November 2007 after a nightmare off the track, Ron Dennis stipulated that Alonso could not go to any team that would be a direct rival of McLaren for the championship. So with that in mind, there were 3 teams that he could have gone to. Renault, which had suffered a serious decline in the years since his departure, Toyota, which hadn't been able to reap the rewards of the insane amounts of money poured into F1 since entering the sport in 2002, and Red Bull, which had only entered F1 3 years earlier. Among these three mid-table teams, Alonso chose to return to Renault. In an interview with Sky just after announcing his retirement in 2018, Nando mentioned that Red Bull had approached him 6 times, in 2007, 2009, 2011, 2013, and then finally twice in 2019, to fill the seat left vacant by Ricciardo's departure. However, Christian Horner only confirmed the talks for the 2009 season. Horner said in a statement that he and Helmut Marko had offered Alonso a 2-year contract at the end of the 2008 season to race for Red Bull in 2009 and 10, but no agreement was reached because the driver did not want to tie himself to Red Bull with a 2-year contract. It was pretty well known even back then that Alonso had signed a contract very early on to race for Ferrari from 2010 onwards, and this was certainly a factor in pushing him away from a 2-year deal with Red Bull. It's understandable that he didn't want to go to an unproven team when Ferrari was a possibility, but let's imagine him in the Red Bull seat for 2009. In any case, Fernando Alonso could have continued to flirt with the most prestigious team on the grid for 2010 and even signed a contract. But as the saying goes, contracts are nothing more than a piece of paper in the world of Formula 1. The performance of his new team, which suddenly shot to the front of the grid in 2009 with the new rules, could have made Alonso change his mind about going to Ferrari and made them give Red Bull more time. Seeing the team's continued success, and with the potential for further victories, the driver could have shied away from a move to Ferrari for a long time. He might even have prevented the realization of the Brawn GP dream in the 2009 season. Red Bull, with zero championship experience both in terms of team and drivers, had lost too many points at the start of the season that could have been valuable at the end. They chased Brawn throughout the season, a team which did not have the means to improve their car at all, but the gap was just too wide to close. Alonso could have been more successful in scoring points early in the season and wouldn't have been on the back foot as much, allowing him to catch and even pass Brawn and Button in the standings at the end of the season. In 2010, Red Bull had the best car, but the loss of valuable points suffered by both drivers meant that they were unable to shake their rivals out of the championship race. Alonso was as close to snatching the championship as an untimely pit stop in the final race against Red Bull's RB6, which had taken pole in 15 of the 19 races. It was highly likely that Fernando wouldn't have missed his chance against his young teammate Vettel. Vettel stepped up his game over the next 3 years as he adapted brilliantly to the blown diffuser developed by Red Bull. Alonso's job could have been much more difficult against the German. Still, even if Seb won the championship again in 2011 and 2013, in the years when he looked invincible, Fernando could have given his teammate a lot of trouble in the championship fight as someone who's no slouch in terms of adapting to the car. But 2012 was a slightly different story. Vettel and Red Bull did not have a dominant advantage, and Alonso, in his own words, had the best season of his career, narrowly missing out on winning the championship once again with the third best car. Had he carried this form over to Red Bull, he would have been the favorite for the championship this year. Then, with the arrival of the turbo hybrid era, the seemingly never-ending Mercedes dominance began, as we all know. There were no seats available at Mercedes at this time for Nando, so it wouldn't have been possible for him to find a car that would give him a serious championship chance for many years to come. Even though Alonso's name was frequently mentioned with Mercedes in the media during this period, when Toto Wolff was presented with these rumors, he quickly shut the door by reminding what happened in 2007 with McLaren, or rather then known as McLaren Mercedes. The chatter for the move involving a swap that would also send Hamilton to Ferrari turned out to be nothing more than a rumor put forward by Alonso and his management team. So, to recap, in this scenario, 3 more seasons would be added to the number of seasons in which the Spaniard would be in the championship race. 2009, 2010 and 2012 would also stand out as serious chances, and Alonso could perhaps have become a 5-time world champion. And if he had continued to race for Red Bull until today, he would have had to wait all the way until 2021 to get a car from the team that could realistically challenge for the championship. However, no matter how good a driver he is, it may be a little optimistic to see a 40-year-old Fernando Alonso as the favorite against the now triple world champion Max Verstappen. One possibility is that Fernando might have wanted to leave the team at the end of 2014 following an unsuccessful season by Red Bull's recent standards. The Renault power unit Red Bull was using was both slow and unreliable. The only logical choice for him here would have been to move to Ferrari, just like Vettel. Of course, we shouldn't overlook the positive change at Ferrari after Vettel joined in 2015, and it's not clear whether the same steps would have been taken in terms of car development until 2017 had Alonso joined the team 2 years before. But if the car was equally competitive with Mercedes, 2017 and 18 would have been serious opportunities for Alonso. It would have been unlikely for him to beat Mercedes and Lewis Hamilton in both of these seasons, but perhaps he could have become champion by limiting the points lost in one of them. But of course, although Vettel had a share in Ferrari's failure to win the championship in these years, we shouldn't forget that the team also lost points due to breakdowns and strategy, and they couldn't keep up with Mercedes in the car development race during the season. Let's now rewind and go back to the 2007 season. 2007 was one of the most turbulent seasons in history, both for Alonso and McLaren as a whole. But what if the tension within the team hadn't been at that level? It's pretty hard to imagine this happening with Alonso and Hamilton, but would they have made the same mistakes on the same scale if at least one driver hadn't been sabotaging his own team, or if the friction between the two drivers hadn't spilled over to the rest of the team in such fashion? For one thing, Raikkonen's miracle comeback in the last two races would have been even more impossible without the two McLarens squabbling with each other in 2007. One could both argue that Fernando could have capitalized on his experience and pushed his way to the front as the season progressed and the championship pressure increased, and that Lewis was actually more affected by all this drama as a rookie, so without it, he would have outperformed his teammate and finished ahead. I think the latter would have been more likely, but the McLaren duo's pace and stats were so evenly matched throughout the season that, with so many variables, it's impossible to predict which way the 2007 season would have gone. But what comes next is even more intriguing. Fernando Alonso had signed a 3-year contract when he joined McLaren in 2007, and the team's partnership with one of the grid's favorites would have lasted 2 more seasons in this scenario, as they were in a position to challenge for the championship together. And the 2008 season would have been a golden opportunity for Alonso. Championship leaders Hamilton and Massa were not racking up points consistently throughout the season, and it looked almost as if they wanted to gift each other the title at certain points. Bringing Nando into the equation would have meant that he would have probably finished the season as champion with far fewer mistakes, and that we would have been deprived of the spectacular season finale in Brazil. At the end of 2009, a season in which McLaren won only 2 races under the new regulations and fell far short of expectations, Fernando could have been reluctant to extend his expiring contract. Even if there wasn't an extremely abrasive environment at McLaren in this scenario, there would have been some friction between Hamilton and Alonso building up for 3 seasons up to this point, and so the desire to turn a new page for Alonso could have outweighed his desire to renew his contract. However, he would not have much of a choice. According to Christian Horner, Red Bull were no longer looking for a driver at this point. The Alonso chapter was closed for them after the talks not materializing in 2008. The only possibility for him was to go to Ferrari, just like in reality, but this time without wasting 2 years in the midfield at Renault in the meantime. At this point, Alonso's career is once again split into 2 paths. First, let's follow the same route as in real life. After arriving at Ferrari, he would have been in search of a new challenge again in 2014, when the Italian team made a disastrous entry into the turbo hybrid era. Considering the dominance of Mercedes, and the fact that Ferrari and Red Bull were no longer pursuing him, it doesn't really matter which of the remaining teams Alonso went to for the sake of this video. He wouldn't have been competing for titles for a while. Fernando Alonso thus adds 1 or 2 more championships in this scenario to the ones he won at Renault. Now, what if the championship swung his way in 2010 or 2012? After all, very small margins decided the champion in both of these seasons, especially in 2010. The 2010 champion could have been someone else had Ferrari not pitted Alonso in the season finale to protect him from Webber's undercut, causing him to get stuck in 7th place till the end of the race. When Alonso left Ferrari at the end of 2014, he had 2 more seasons left on his contract. Ferrari even made an offer to the Spaniard to extend his contract until 2019, but he left this offer unanswered. Alonso, now having already achieved glory with the Scuderia, could have been a little more patient with Ferrari's F14T, instead of wanting to embark on a new adventure so easily. As we've just gone over previously, it's hard to know if Ferrari could have put out such a strong package in 2017 and 18 with Alonso staying, but if they had, Nando would have played a leading role in another title race with his former teammate and possibly won another championship. Now I admit, the last scenario is a little less likely and a little out of Alonso's control, but let's include it anyway. Mercedes in 2007 did not have its own team, but rather was the engine supplier and partner of the McLaren team. So when Alonso burnt the bridges with McLaren in 2007, it didn't go down particularly well with Mercedes too. Fast forward to the end of the 2016 season, when Nico Rosberg did his own version of a mic drop, retiring from F1 just days after becoming world champion. Toto Wolff was immediately sought after by almost everyone on the grid. After 3 years of the grueling intra-team duel between Rosberg and Hamilton, Mercedes yearned for a more harmonious and manageable driver pairing, yes, but the favorite candidate in terms of driver profile was undoubtedly Fernando Alonso, despite being 35 years old. Alonso going to Mercedes wasn't a very prominent possibility, but here we're talking about an Alonso who left McLaren Mercedes on not so bad terms. Moreover, with Wolff having concrete evidence spanning multiple seasons that Alonso is at least somewhat manageable as a teammate with Hamilton, the main thing holding him back from signing the double world champion is completely removed in this scenario, so why not? We can add this possibility to both of the paths we drew in which he didn't leave McLaren, but it certainly wouldn't be easy for Alonso, as this time he would be up against a much more improved and polished Hamilton, not a rookie. It's very difficult to predict who will be champion and how many times here again, so I will leave the interpretation completely to you. However, one thing is for certain, it would have been an incredible spectacle to watch the magnificent championship duels of these two for 5 seasons in a row, all the way from 2017 to 2021. How do you think Alonso's career could have shaped differently? How many times and in which years would he have been champion in these scenarios? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, goodbye.